Are you someone who has a favorite sports statistic? One of mine is George Foreman, who won the heavyweight championship of the world at 24 and then regained it only 66 days before his 46th birthday. No other athlete has won championships over 20 years apart. George says his proudest moment was when he was 19 years old and he won the Olympic gold medal for heavyweights at the Games in Mexico City. He turned professional shortly thereafter. After he retired from boxing, I went to Houston and had a conversation with George.
Most people know you as George Foreman, champion boxer, commercial spokesman, humanitarian. But it didn't start out that way. You were a work in progress. Go back to the beginning of your life.
You talk about a work in progress. I'm all of that. Even to this day, I'm progressing. But the point of it is that I started off with nothing. As a matter of fact, the only thing I can count that had a sincere in my life that amounted to something was a good mother. Stood by me, but I was in trouble, a juvenile delinquent to say the least. Didn't have any role models. I remember the only people I admired were thugs hanging on the street with big scars on their face. And I figured one day I was gonna have a bigger scar, and then so people would admire me for fighting on the street corners. And of course, to get enough nerve to do what I wanted to do, I had to start drinking early, because drinking cheap wine gave me that old spirit that I could beat anybody, and I wasn't afraid of anything. Next thing you know, I was consumed with that. Dropped out of high school as a teenager, being chased by the police with nothing to do. Running from the police one night, from mugging some people. I had to run out of the house to hide from them. And I remember thinking the dogs were going to find me, smell me in this house. So I covered myself from head to toe with slop. Sewage pipe had burst in the house so the dogs wouldn't smell me. And it's the first time I realized that I was a bum, a thug, thief. Because why else would I be trying to hide from dogs like criminals do on television? And I remember thinking at 16, if I ever get from under this house, I'll never steal again. Not having any idea what I was going to do with my life. I heard a commercial the great football player Jimmy Brown and Johnny Unitas did for the Job Corps. They said, if you're looking for a second chance, join the Job Corps. And I did. Went into Grants Pass, Oregon, the first Job Corps center, Fort Vanoy in Oregon. And I found a whole different world with green trees, grass, outdoors, the Rogue River flowing. I'd never seen anything like that. A new world. Started to change my life. They started to teach me basic education, even learn a vocational skill, start to read books, find out that you can travel in your mind by reading, things of that nature. It wasn't long before I transferred to Pleasanton, California, to Parks Job Corps Center. I met my first boxing coach, Doc Broders, because I made a bargain with the guys. I was a bully on the center. They told me if I was so tough, after listening to Muhammad Ali, he was Cassius Clay in fight Floyd Patterson, if you're so tough, why don't you be a boxer? And I decided I was going to be a boxer to show them that I was really tough, never knowing that it would consume my life. But I had no idea that I could box. I went out a few times. I didn't like it. I didn't win the first time. I looked stupid. People laughed. But Doc Broders never gave up on me. He told me, if you stop fighting in the streets, stay out of trouble, George, you can be an Olympic gold medalist. 1968, I won that gold medal. Things started to change then. That was the beginning of a guy who could dream and realize dreams.
You know, you said in your book, George, you were always ready to explode. But I think your character showed through too, because over the years you were able to conquer that rage. You were able to conquer the nicotine addiction you had, the alcoholic consumption that you had, and you had other things like unhealthy appetites. Where did you find the strength to overcome all these?
I think your strength comes by love. Once I had my dear sister wrote me, and I was trying to stop smoking because I heard an athlete say, look, if you're going to be a good champion, you can't smoke and drink. And oh my goodness, I love to smoke so much. I used to love to see the thing, and I had to cut the light on to see the smoke. And I just tried everything I could. And once my oldest sister wrote and told me that one of my other sisters was in trouble. She needed some help. And I sent my whole paycheck to her from the Job Corps Center where I was working at this time. And she wrote me back and thanked me for being a great brother. She said, you've made something of your life, and I'm so happy for you, caring about your family. I said, boy, that she never even called me brother. And she thought so much of me, and I never smoked again. To have somebody say those things about me that I wanted to be, it gave me the strength to stop smoking. Of course, the rage stayed inside of me, and I realized I wasn't gonna get very far with that, going around beating up because sometimes I'd beat up my friends even. And
On your 19th birthday,
yeah,
you beat a guy up, didn't you? And didn't know you'd done it.
I got drunk. I said, this is the last time because I stopped smoking cigarettes. I said, I'm going to have my last drink, and this is it. And I went out to a party and got drunk and beat up my friend. The next day, he came to me and told me he'd forgiven me. And I didn't even know I'd beaten him up. I never touched drinking again. So you find strength in love. Love gives you the strength and pity for yourself. Look, how could I do this to my loved ones? So I found the strength to overcome a lot of things, and even the rage, just by the love and respect I found for other people.
You speak so lovingly of your grandmother, your mother, your aunts, your sisters. Were these women of prayer?
My family, I can't remember, go back because I didn't even look or pay much attention to praying in those days. When they were all growing up, I was just trying to literally prey on people.
P-R-E-Y, huh?
Yeah. And so I didn't care. I didn't think too much of that, and I didn't give any idea of religion at all. I just know that these people respected me, and I loved them because of what they had done for me naturally, all the natural things. My mother used to tell me to say my prayers, read the Bible, and but it didn't make much sense to me. It really didn't for years. But I knew them. I knew something special about them. They cared about me.
George, you have said, if you can dream, you can do anything. Did you have a dream?
I'd always wake up in these dreams, and I tell literally dreams. I don't mean like something where you tell people dream, and I mean literally. I dreamed one night. I had a dream, and I went down to a great football stadium, and I saw my name in lights. So what in the world is that? My name in lights, and I'd never seen this in this great football stadium. It's one of those great football stadiums in California too, and then one day I saw this. I was driving this expensive sports car, and the front end was so long I didn't know how to turn it. I said, boy, I'm going to have things like that. So, I dreamed these things, and I started to work on them. That's why I was never satisfied until I got my first long front end Corvette. And, of course, I did see my name in lights in years to come. But I dreamed those things and realized if you can lay down and have a dream about something, you can actually get up and work hard to do those things.
Life has knocked you down, no doubt about it. You faced adversity. How did you deal with it?
Well, adversity is kind of hard because I started winning boxing matches, of course. So many boxing matches in life. I remember even in the finals, getting ready to go to the Olympics, there was this one boxer, his name was Clay Hodges. He beat me in one finals, beat me in the a boxing match period. And I just figured I'm not going to be an Olympic champion because I cannot beat this man. I could beat everybody else but Clay Hodges. And I got to the finals of the National AAU, and Clay Hodges hadn't made it. And I won a national tournament. I got to the Olympic trials. Somebody had beaten him, and I realized he's not here. I can win anything. And from then on, I realized that, if you can just keep working, don't ever turn back, that there's always the light somewhere. Of course, I won many boxes, became boxing matches, Olympic champion, heavyweight champion of the world.
In 1973, undefeated heavyweight champion Frazier, who at that time had a record of 29-0 with 25 knockouts, faced the undefeated George Foreman, who at the time was 37-0 with 34 KOs. Frazier was a 3-1 favorite. Here's how Howard Cosell described the action.
Frazier is dazed. He is getting hit again and again and again. The same head that was hit so often by Muhammad Ali. Frazier is dazed. You see the countdown for the first round. Foreman has not panicked. Foreman is going about his job. Foreman is all over Joe Frazier. Frazier is down again, and he may be. No, he is rising. He is game. He doesn't know where he is. The mandatory 8 count. He doesn't know where he is. Now the round is about to end. 2 knockdowns in the first round of Joe Frazier. Down again. No saving by the bell. He's up, and so the fight continues. 3 knockdowns in the... Oh, he is all over Frazier again. He has Frazier in the corner. Frazier's knees buckled. He is down. He is down for the 4th time in the fight. George Foreman is doing to Joe Frazier what he did as a 19-year-old to a veteran Russian, a fellow named Ionis Shapoulis, in October of 1968 in the Mexico City Arena. A quick left from George. Another. Frazier is down for the 5th time in this fight. 5th time. 3 times in the first round, twice in the second. McCanny checked his senses, checked Frazier's senses. Right, it's target practice for George Foreman. It is target practice. Frazier is ready to go again. Joe is standing. There he goes. 3 times. 3 times. The fight is stopped. No, it is not. It is not stopped. Angie Dundee is screaming, stop it. Bertie Pacheco, Ali's doctor next to me. It is over. It is over. It is over in the second round. George Foreman is the heavyweight champion of the world.
Foreman defended his title twice and had won 40 straight bouts until he was knocked out by Muhammad Ali in a fight at Zaire in the 8th round. It was the only time in his career that George Foreman was ever knocked out. And that was in 81 fights.
And I faced the biggest piece of adversity is when I lost to Muhammad Ali in Zaire in Africa. I knew I could beat him. I told everybody I could beat him, and I acted like the guy who could beat everybody. Didn't make friends with anyone. And there I was lying on the canvas. You hear the referee counting 1, 2, you jump up and it's all over. That's like you torn everything, because I didn't realize for the first time I'd forgotten who I really am. I was the heavyweight champ of the world. When I jumped up, I was not. And I felt like I'd been robbed from everything inside of me. That's being knocked down, not just naturally, but spiritually, emotionally. I lost everything I thought that was important. And I fueled it with hate to get it back. I just had to get back and get that title and to hate everybody who stood in my way, and I was going to show them. But one night I fought in the 70s, Ron Lyles, and he knocked me down about 2 times, at least 2 times, maybe 3, I can't remember. I kept getting up, and I remember saying, you know what, I'm going to get up. Even if I die, I'm going to get up. They're going to have to count me out or carry me out on a stretcher. After that fight, I was able to live with myself, because I showed not only my friends and family, but me, that I could get up no matter what. And from then on, I was straight with adversity, knowing that getting knocked down is not a crime, but you can live with yourself. I didn't think I would get up and win the boxing match, but I just wanted to end on my feet.
What an incredible fight. Utterly without boxing skills. Just punching away. Each fighter in turn.
Foreman's using power and Lyles waiting just a little too long. They're both fighting. Foreman. Lyles got to come back with
Now
one
it's
down.
Lyles down to the canvas. Foreman punching him again and again and again when it looked like George was done. This time it may be over. This time it may be over.
Lyles not going to make it, Lyles. He's not going to make it.
A knockout in the 5th round by George Foreman when it seemed Lyle had command of this ever-changing bout.
What'd you learn about yourself?
I learned that, you say to yourself that, look, you give advice all the time, and the worst person in the world to give advice is someone who doesn't take his own advice. I realized that I could take my advice. Keep getting up, George. Keep getting up. Even when I'm totally out of it, there's something inside of me that motivates me to keep getting up. And from the point on, I could live with George Foreman and the loss in Zaire.
After the rough times, how did you deal with disappointment? I mean, you're right about not letting the disappointment of pain linger. And you mentioned the fact that Ron Lyle knocked you down 2 or 3 times. You talked about the fact that Joe Frazier hit you across the face, that Muhammad Ali knocked you out. What do you mean by that? That you just have to keep going and not let the disappointment of pain linger?
Yeah, and I tell my kids constantly, all the time, My favorite piece that I tell them, evil lurks where disappointment lodges. Don't let it live there. Only evil lurks, and it'll catch you. You can become disappointed. There's nothing wrong with that, but get quickly. Don't let it lodge. And then I found out in life, if I shake it off within an hour, it's gone. But if I wait 2 or 3 days, then it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. But with that, if I could forgive Joe Frazier for hitting me as hard as he tried to hit me, and Muhammad Ali for how he knocked me down, because I just jumped back and don't even remember the physical pain of it, I could forgive anyone in life for what they've done to me. And that was a hard thing, is forgiving people, because you say to yourself, look what he did, look what she did, look what they've done to me. And I learned that evil lurks where disappointment lodges. If I can forgive my enemies and people who I felt had done me wrong, I can live with anything. If I can live with a punch from Muhammad Ali, I can live with disappointment. I can shake it off.
George Foreman, what has been the most difficult experience in your life?
There have been so many difficult experiences. I remember when I made up my mind I was going to be a preacher. It was 1977. And people were calling me, what are you going to do? I even had Muhammad Ali to tell me, look, I'll give you a rematch. And all of the promoters telling me, now, we don't care about the loss. You can come back. And I said, no, I'm going to be a preacher. No, I'm not coming back. I'm going to be a preacher. That was difficult. I walked out of one world, in a sense, into another. But it's simple, but it was the most difficult thing. Then, to make my comeback, 10 years later, I had to say, no, I'm coming back into boxing. I had to take my shirt off, unbutton my shirt, make a fist. I had not done that for 10 years. You talk about difficult decisions, they were equal.
George, 1977 was a life-changing year for you. You were in Puerto Rico. You lost a bout to Jimmy Young. Share with us what occurred in your dressing room immediately after that fight.
Oh, the strangest thing happened to me. And I said earlier about how my mother tried to impose, well, go pray, George, read the Bible. And I never did read it. To me, it was a sheep herder's handbook, because all I saw were photographs of guys leading sheep. That's all I can remember about it. And the word was thou shall, and all that, that's a good way to define it. I didn't believe, I knew that was God somewhere, the heavens, and I had friends, we talked about stuff, but religion, bunch of hocus pocus. All of the people I'd seen anywhere weak, and they were faceless people with sad songs, Amazing Grace. So, and I said that was God, and me, friends and I would talk, but I went back to the dressing room that night to cool off, and I was extremely hot in San Juan, Puerto Rico, so hot. The air conditions had gone off in the building. I'd lost the decision. I was sad about that, but I'd gone 12 rounds, which is more important to me. I showed my friends I could go 12 rounds, just not knock you out. So I was cooling off in the dressing room. It was so hot. Took my robe off, walking back and forth, cooling off, trying to think, because you don't want to sit down in these moments. I said, look, I'm thinking, still George Foreman. You don't have to worry about this boxing match. You went 12 rounds. You still got money, your homes. If you want to, you could retire right now and go home to your ranch in Marshall and die. I said, die? How'd that get in there? I don't care about a stupid boxing match. I got money. I got wealth. I'm still famous. I got my ranch. I could go home right now and forget about boxing and die. Die, it happened again. It started to multiply. You're going to die. And I'd heard about athletes dying after games and sports events, but not me. I'm muscular. I'm alive. And I'm not disappointed. I was afraid to tell about 7 or 8 fellows in the room what was happening to me, because I didn't want them thinking, oh, he's disappointed, he's sad. I didn't care about this boxing match. My life never was going on. And right in the midst of my thoughts, I heard the voice say, well, you believe in God. I'm thinking, you believe in God, why are you scared to die? Well, sure, everybody believes in God. I talk about religion. When I heard about pretty girls in churches, I'd go over there and even act like I'm praying. But I just didn't believe in religion. You know, I'd heard about these people going to church and coming back weak. So I said, yeah, everybody believes in God. So I tried to make a deal. I had this money, and I've been doing all kinds of great things with money. I said, you know what? I'm still George Foreman. I can box and give money to charity and for cancer. And the voice answered me right in my thoughts. I don't want your money. I want you. And I remember tears started to fall because I knew I had met God, and that was the end of me. And that's who that voice was. It wasn't anyone in the room because no one I knew turned down money. I knew that for sure. I don't want your money. I want you. And the deal didn't work. So I started walking back and forth, trying to cool myself off. Everybody's watching me now because I'm speeding it up. And I couldn't hold it. Finally, I said, God, I believe in you, but not enough before I could say, die. My leg gave out on me. And I tried to scream to the room. I said, hey, y'all, I'm fixing to. Before I could say die, in a split second, I was in this deep, dark nothing. Over my head, under my feet, all around me was nothing. Just a dump yard of every sad thought you ever had in your life, and you could see others were there in this dump yard. This was death, like someone dropped you in the sea, and there's nothing, not a ship or anything, or one of those little barges or anything to hold on to. I was gone, and I got mad. I really got upset. I looked around me, and I saw everything I'd ever worked for, my real estate investment, my land, my money, like someone stick a match to it. I looked behind me, and like it burned and stands for a second and it crumbled. All those years I've been fighting for all those things, and they just crumbled behind me. I said, I don't care if this is death. I still believe in God. I don't care if this is death. I still believe there's a God. That's what I said. When I said that, it was like a gigantic hand reached in, pulled me out of this hopelessness. Nothing. There's no way I'm supposed to be alive here. And there's a horrible smell that goes along with death that you never forget. I can smell it even as I tell you the story. It's horrible. And I was alive in this dressing room when I said that. They grabbed me and pushed me back, and I could feel blood flowing through my veins. Evidently, they picked me up and put me on the table because everybody was standing around me. My Dr. West was standing behind me. I said, Dr. West, move your hands because the thorns on his head are making him bleed. And when I looked, I saw blood coming out my head. I hadn't been cut from the boxing match. And I told my masseur, Mr. Fuller, move your hand because the thorns on this, because he's bleeding where they crucified him. He looked at me kind of strange. He was crying. And I started screaming, Jesus Christ is coming alive in me. Everybody looked at me, I jumped off the table, started fighting 8 men to get in the shower. Don't let him in the shower, it's too cold. And I started screaming words in the shower. Hallelujah, I'm clean, I've been born again. Boy, they tied me down, and I said, I got to go tell the world. They said, well, you need to put on some clothes. But they fought me, 8 men, and carried me and held me down. And as they put me on the table, held me down. They had to fight me that night. And I started reciting the Bible, telling people about God and about Jesus Christ. They tried to, George, cool down, champ, easy, champ. And right as they held me down, I heard a voice get further away. So I come to my friends and they don't understand me. And I come to my brothers, they don't believe me. I start screaming, don't let Jesus go. I felt all those years when they told you you're going to be heavyweight champ of the world, you're going to have this, that, and the other. That moment, I felt all that. What I've been looking for all those years, I felt it in that dressing room. That I was somebody for the first time in my life. I said, don't let Jesus go. And then the voice said, I now go to my Father, which is in heaven. I screamed, don't let him go, and it was gone. Then I was just one big embarrassed guy in the dressing room. I looked around and I said, y'all witnessed a miracle, and you won't even believe it. Well, they rushed me to intensive care. Put me in, I remember seeing that little button go boom, boom. I remember thinking on television, if it go flat, that's the end of you. And I was alive. And I tried to hide this for years. I didn't want to tell anybody about this. I was embarrassed about this. I made fun of people who did this. I remember 1970, must have been 76, some girls came to me, some of my girlfriends, of course, and they told me about this baseball player had come to them and said, girl, he told me he's born again. I told him, get out of my face with that. And I said, yeah. And I said, boy, that'll never happen to me. And they made fun of this guy, and I made fun with him. He was a famous baseball player, you may remember. And we laughed about it. There I was in this thing now, And so how do I hide it? I went off and didn't tell anyone about it. I kept it a secret for a long time. But then finally, Dr. Schuler, Garden Grove, called me out to give my testimony. Then he said that he would just come out and tell his congregation. He believed me because it bothered me. Then later on, he told me it would be on television. I started speaking to him because I was embarrassed about this. For years, I didn't speak to him for many years because of that. And this thing took over my life. I started traveling, giving this testimony and telling him. Next thing you know, they called me Brother George Rail. I was ordained. And this is what I've been doing since then. Only on that one night in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Well, you've shown a lot of heart throughout your life. Please relate the story to us about the woman in Houston who came to you after you had retired the first time from boxing and asked you to work with her son to become a boxer, and what you told her and what happened after that that really made an impact in your life.
Yeah, going to church, you really get deep into religion. I think all of us do. Brother, Reverend, Amazing Grace, and the songs all over again. I became one of those nice preachers, dedicated preachers. Everybody looked up to me and said, oh, he's really a strong religious man. He got full of the Holy Ghost. And so I went to visit a gym at my brother's little gym he had. He decided to work with boxers, and I just visited him to give him some support. And as I was sitting there, this young lady came in with her boy, young mother too, hair all over her head. You can see she's had trouble. And she gave me this look in my eyes as if to say, look, if George Foreman helped, they told her, that's George Foreman. She didn't even recognize me. George Foreman, if he really works for my boy, he can really help my boy. And I remember giving her that look. Hey, if you really want to help that boy, bring him to church. That's what really, boxing and athletics not going to help a kid. Bring him to church. And I inquired about this kid about 2 months later. I don't know why. And my brother told me that this kid had robbed a store, he and his friend. The storekeep shot his friend, and he in return shot the storekeep. These lives devastated because I was worried about, I can't help boxers again. What are my congregation saying? George is a backslider? I was so worried about what church people would say. And this devastated me. I took my money I had set aside to live happily ever after, to send my kids to college. And when my brother Roy and I started the George Foreman Youth Center, I said, I can't help that kid now, but I'm going to put this place up so I can hang out with children. I'm not going to teach them anything. I'm not going to take a Bible down there. I'm just going to be there for them. And that's the beginning of the George Foreman Youth and Community Center right there. I decided I was going to give of myself. And boy, years have gone by, the center is there, and which is one of the reasons that provoked me to get back into boxing. I ran out of money.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Later, you came to the realization that to financially support that center, you had to return to the ring. And that's why you returned to boxing at the age of 37, to help children. I mean, that was the key reason.
I was running out of money. I didn't have any money. And the kind of money I needed, I started speaking in different places. But one night I'm in a church. This people had called me into Georgia, and they said, listen, if you come down for 3 nights, we're going to raise some money for your youth center. And I told them that's what I speak for. And I got down there after the 3rd night. The guy started asking people to give money. And they gave some money. He said, listen, George is helping your children. He's helping those kids out there. We know you can give more money. And I'm standing back there in the front of all these people thinking, these people don't have money to do that. I said, you know what? I know how to get money. I'm going to be heavyweight champ of the world again. I said, I'll never ask anyone else for money again. And that is what propelled me back into boxing.
What did you do in training to use the whole of your body and your mind at age 45 to win the heavyweight championship the second time?
I did a lot of praying, that's for sure. I don't know how I made it in boxing without praying the first time. Dick Sattler would go through these praying ceremonies in the church. Just in a dressing room before a fight in my earlier career. But I was like, okay. Amen. Just get this out of the way. He did that, but I didn't believe in all of that. But the second time around, I prayed, even before I practiced. Give me strength to go extra rounds. Give me strength to go more in the heavy bag. Give me strength to skip rope. All those things I pray each time I do anything, or even prepare to do anything. That made the difference.
After retiring at 28, George Foreman returned to the ring years later. He posted 24 consecutive victories, lost to Evander Holyfield, and captured his next 4 bouts. In 1995, Foreman earned another shot at the heavyweight title as he took on Michael Moore. And here's how that went in the 10th round. Because he had lost the first 9 rounds, at least most of them, according to the experts. George Foreman was heavyweight champion again at the age of 45 years and 299 days. He had 4 more fights in his career, and according to the pundits who were at ringside for the final fight he had won 9 of the 12 rounds in that bout. But it turned out that 2 of the judges had been bribed, and Foreman lost. In the post-fight media conference, George was asked repeatedly, "Do you think you were robbed by the judges?" He smiled and said, "A year ago at this time, my young rival tonight was literally living out of a cardboard box. Now that he has won, his life will change quickly. And for that reason alone, this was a blessing." Foreman retired just before his 49th birthday. His record, 76 wins, 68 by knockout, and 5 losses. In 1992, George was in Texas when he began watching the televised showings of the riots in Los Angeles, which had followed the Rodney King verdicts. As a result, George was very upset. He called his good friend and boxing publicist and our friend, Bill Caplan, in Los Angeles. And he asked Bill if there was any way he could set up a meeting with Magic Johnson in LA. Well, he told Bill, "I'm worried about the elderly people like my mother who are losing valuable places like pharmacies, which they've so relied on, and now I'm seeing being burned down." Caplan told him, "Yeah, I'll try." And Bill did. He set it up. And the very next day, George Foreman flew to Los Angeles and met with Magic Johnson. They had never met each other before, but they were each fans of the other in sports. So they hugged when they got together. And Foreman asked Johnson, "Will you help me as we try to rebuild at least pharmacies?" And Magic said, "Yes, I will." And when he did that, Foreman reached in his pocket, pulled out his checkbook, wrote a check, and handed it to Magic. The check was for $1 million. The pharmacy was built. George had 5 daughters and 5 sons, all of whom he named George Edward Foreman because he said they would all have something in common that way. A few years after Foreman left boxing, he became the spokesperson for a fat-reducing grill, which became known as the George Foreman Grill. It became a fantastic marketing success, as George did numerous television commercials. He was paid 40% of the profits on each grill that was sold, earning him $4.5 million a month in payouts. That's at its peak. The George Foreman Grill wound up being sold nearly 200 million units. He was paid $138 million in 1999 for allowing his name to be used in endorsements. For the right to use it, it paid off well. In the first 12 years, George Foreman was paid an estimated $200 million. Today, George Foreman is 74. He's still with his pastorate in Houston. He also has a ranch in North Texas, and there he loves animals, and he has raised just as many as you could imagine. His favorites are German Shepherd dogs, which he's trained for about 40 years, and also horses. George Foreman has had a very interesting life.